It's day 78 of our Bible reading plan, and we're reading Leviticus chapter 12, Proverbs chapter 4, Proverbs chapter 5, Mark chapter 10, verse 1 to verse 16, 1 Corinthians chapter 16, verse 1 to verse 11, and Psalms chapter 78. We're reading from the Berean Standard Bible, and we start with Leviticus chapter 12. Then the Lord said to Moses, say to the Israelites, a woman who becomes pregnant and gives birth to a son will be unclean for 7 days, as she is during the days of her menstruation. And on the 8th day, the flesh of the boy's foreskin is to be circumcised. The woman shall continue in purification from her bleeding for 33 days. She must not touch anything sacred or go into the sanctuary until the days of her purification are complete. If, however, she gives birth to a daughter, the woman will be unclean for 2 weeks, as she is during her menstruation. Then she must continue in purification from her bleeding for 66 days. When the days of her purification are complete, whether for a son or for a daughter, she is to bring to the priest at the entrance to the tent of meeting a year-old lamb for a burnt offering and a young pigeon or a turtle dove for a sin offering. And the priest will present them before the Lord and make atonement for her, and she shall be ceremonially cleansed from a flow of blood. This is the law for a woman giving birth, whether to a male or to a female. But if she cannot afford a lamb, she shall bring 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, one for a burnt offering and the other for a sin offering. Then the priest will make atonement for her, and she will be clean. Proverbs chapter 4. Listen, my sons, to a father's instruction. Pay attention and gain understanding. For I give you sound teaching. Do not abandon my directive. When I was a son to my father, tender and the only child of my mother, he taught me and said, let your heart lay hold of my words. Keep my commands, and you will live. Get wisdom, get understanding. Do not forget my words or turn from them. Do not forsake wisdom, and she will preserve you. Love her, and she will guard you. Wisdom is supreme, so acquire wisdom, and whatever you may acquire, gain understanding. Prize her, and she will exalt you. If you embrace her, she will honor you. She will set a garland of grace on your head. She will present you with a crown of beauty. Listen, my son, and receive my words, and the years of your life will be many. I will guide you in the way of wisdom. I will lead you on straight paths. When you walk, your steps will not be impeded. When you run, you will not stumble. Hold on to instruction, do not let it go. Guard it, for it is your life. Do not set foot on the path of the wicked, or walk in the way of evildoers. Avoid it, do not travel on it. Turn from it and pass on by. For they cannot sleep unless they do evil. They are deprived of slumber until they make someone fall. For they eat the bread of wickedness and drink the wine of violence. The path of the righteous is like the first gleam of dawn, shining brighter and brighter until midday. But the way of the wicked is like the darkest gloom. They do not know what makes them stumble. My son, pay attention to my words. Incline your ear to my sayings. Do not lose sight of them. Keep them within your heart. For they are life to those who find them, and health to the whole body. Guard your heart with all diligence, for from it flow springs of life. Put away deception from your mouth. Keep your lips from perverse speech. Let your eyes look forward. Fix your gaze straight ahead. Make a level path for your feet, and all your ways will be sure. Do not swerve to the right or to the left. Turn your feet away from evil. Proverbs chapter 5. My son, pay attention to my wisdom, incline your ear to my insight, that you may maintain discretion and your lips may preserve knowledge. Though the lips of the forbidden woman drip honey, and her speech is smoother than oil, in the end she is bitter as wormwood, sharp as a double-edged sword. Her feet go down to death, her steps lead straight to Sheol. She does not consider the path of life. She does not know that her ways are unstable. So now, my sons, listen to me, and do not turn aside from the words of my mouth. Keep your path far from her. Do not go near the door of her house, lest you concede your vigor to others, and your years to one who is cruel. Lest strangers feast on your wealth, and your labors enrich the house of a foreigner. At the end of your life, you will groan when your flesh and your body are spent, and you will say, how I hated discipline, and my heart despised reproof. I did not listen to the voice of my teachers or incline my ear to my mentors. I am on the brink of utter ruin in the midst of the whole assembly. Drink water from your own cistern and running water from your own well. Why should your springs flow in the streets, your streams of water in the public squares? Let them be yours alone, never to be shared with strangers. May your fountain be blessed, and may you rejoice in the wife of your youth, a loving doe, a graceful fawn. May her breast satisfy you always. May you be captivated by her love forever. Why be captivated, my son, by an adulteress, or embrace the bosom of a stranger? For a man's ways are before the eyes of the Lord, and the Lord examines all his paths. The iniquities of a wicked man entrap him, the cords of his sin entangle him. He dies for lack of discipline, led astray by his own great folly. Now we're going to read Mark chapter 10, verse 1 to verse 16. Then Jesus left that place and went into the region of Judea beyond the Jordan. Again, the crowds came to him, and he taught them as was his custom. Some Pharisees came to test him. Is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife? They inquired, what did Moses command you? He replied. They answered, Moses permitted a man to write his wife a certificate of divorce and send her away. But Jesus told them, Moses wrote this commandment for you because of your hardness of heart. However, from the beginning of creation, God made them male and female. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let man not separate. When they were back inside the house, the disciples asked Jesus about this matter. So he told them, whoever divorces his wife and marries another woman commits adultery against her. And if a woman divorces her husband and marries another man, she commits adultery. Now, people were bringing the little children to Jesus for him to place his hands on them, and the disciples rebuked those who brought them. But when Jesus saw this, he was indignant and told them, let the little children come to me, and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of God belongs to such as this. Truly, I tell you, anyone who does not receive the kingdom of God like a little child will never enter it. And he took the children in his arms, placed his hands on them, and blessed them. Our next reading is 1 Corinthians chapter 16, verse 1 to verse 11. Now, about the collection for the saints, you were to do as I directed the churches of Galatia. On the first day of every week, each of you should set aside a portion of his income, saving it up, so that when I come, no collections will be needed. Then, on my arrival, I will send letters with those you recommend to carry your gift to Jerusalem. And if it is advisable for me to go also, they can travel with me. After I go through Macedonia, however, I will come to you, for I will be going through Macedonia. Perhaps I will stay with you a while, or even spend the winter, so that you can help me on my journey wherever I go. For I do not want to see you now only in passing. I hope to spend some time with you, if the Lord permits. But I will stay in Ephesus until Pentecost, because a great door for effective work has opened to me, even though many oppose me. If Timothy comes, see to it that he has nothing to fear while he is with you, for he is doing the work of the Lord just as I am. No one then should treat him with contempt. Send him on his way in peace, so that he can return to me, for I am expecting him along with the brothers. Now we're going to read the book of Psalms, chapter 78, and that is the last passage we're reading today. Give ear, O my people, to my instruction. Listen to the words of my mouth. I will open my mouth in parables. I will utter things hidden from the beginning, that we have heard and known, and our fathers have relayed to us. We will not hide them from their children, but will declare to the next generation the praises of the Lord and his might, and the wonders he has performed. For he established a testimony in Jacob, and appointed a law in Israel, which he commanded our fathers to teach to their children, that the coming generation would know them, even children yet to be born, to arise and tell their own children, that they should put their confidence in God, not forgetting his works, but keeping his commandments. Then they will not be like their fathers, a stubborn and rebellious generation, whose heart was not loyal, whose spirit was not faithful to God. The archers of Ephraim turned back on the day of battle. They failed to keep God's covenant and refused to live by his law. They forgot what he had done, the wonders he had shown them. He worked wonders before their fathers in the land of Egypt, in the region of Zoan. He split the sea and brought them through. He set the waters upright like a wall. He led them with a cloud by day and with a light of fire all night. He split the rocks in the wilderness and gave them drink as abundant as the seas. He brought streams from the stone and made water flow down like rivers. But they continued to sin against him, rebelling in the desert against the Most High. They willfully tested God by demanding the food they craved. They spoke against God, saying, "Can God really prepare a table in the wilderness?" When he struck the rock, water gushed out and torrents raged. But can he also give bread or supply his people with meat? Therefore the Lord heard and was filled with wrath. So a fire was kindled against Jacob, and his anger flared against Israel, because they did not believe God or rely on his salvation. Yet he commanded the clouds above and opened the doors of the heavens. He rained down manna for them to eat. He gave them grain from heaven. Men ate the bread of angels. He sent them food in abundance. He stirred the east wind from the heavens and drove the south wind by his might. He rained meat on them like dust, and winged birds like the sand of the sea. He felled them in the midst of their camp, all around their dwellings. So they ate and were well filled, for he gave them what they craved. Yet, before they had filled their desire, with the food still in their mouths, God's anger flared against them, and he put to death their strongest and subdued the youngest men of Israel. In spite of all this, they kept on sinning. Despite his wonderful works, they did not believe. So he ended their days in futility and their years in sudden terror. When he slew them, they would seek him. They repented and searched for God, and they remembered that God was their rock, that God Most High was their Redeemer. But they deceived him with their mouths and lied to him with their tongues. Their hearts were disloyal to him, and they were unfaithful to his covenant. and yet he was compassionate. He forgave their iniquity and did not destroy them. He often restrained his anger and did not unleash his full wrath. He remembered that they were but flesh, a passing breeze that does not return. How often they disobeyed him in the wilderness and grieved him in the desert. Again and again they tested God and provoked the Holy One of Israel. They did not remember his power. The day he redeemed them from the adversary, when he performed his signs in Egypt and his wonders in the fields of Zoan. He turned their rivers to blood, and from their streams they could not drink. He sent swarms of flies that devoured them and frogs that devastated them. He gave their crops to the grasshopper, the fruit of their labor to the locust. He killed their vines with hailstones and their sycamore figs with sleet. He abandoned their cattle to the hail and their livestock to bolts of lightning. He unleashed his fury against them, wrath, indignation, and calamity, a band of destroying angels. He cleared a path for his anger. He did not spare them from death, but delivered their lives to the plague. He struck all the firstborn of Egypt, the virality in the tents of Am. He led out his people like sheep and guided them like a flock in the wilderness. He led them safely, so they did not fear, but the sea engulfed their enemies. He brought them to his holy land, to the mountain his right hand had acquired. He drove out nations before them and apportioned their inheritance. He settled the tribes of Israel in their tents. But they tested and disobeyed God Most High, for they did not keep his decrees. They turned back and were faithless like their fathers, twisted like a faulty bow. They enraged him with their high places and provoked his jealousy with their idols. On hearing hate, God was furious and rejected Israel completely. He abandoned the tabernacle of Shiloh, the tent he had pitched among men. He delivered his strength to captivity and his splendor to the hand of the adversary. He surrendered his people to the sword because he was enraged by his heritage. Fire consumed his young men, and their maidens were left without wedding songs. His priests fell by the sword, but their widows could not lament. Then the Lord awoke as from sleep. Like a mighty warrior overcome by wine, he beat back his foes. He put them to everlasting shame. He rejected the tent of Joseph and refused the tribe of Ephraim, but he chose the tribe of Judah, Mount Zion, which he loved. He built a sanctuary like the heights, like the earth he has established forever. He chose David his servant and took him from the sheepfolds, from tending the hills. He brought him to be shepherd of his people, Jacob, of Israel his inheritance. So David shepherded them with integrity of heart and guided them with skillful hands. May the Lord bless the reading and hearing of his word.